dogs of the Han Court, are you? Any who oppose us shall know only the end of our blades!
Wolong Fallen Dynasty is the latest Soulslike to hit the market, and it's from the developers of notably tough games like Nioh and Ninja Gaiden. It packs in some novel gameplay mechanics, but it might not be the hardcore experience fans of the genre are seeking. Buckle up, Souls fans, there's a brand new game and possibly a brand new series vying for your attention and masochistic tendencies. It's Wolong Fallen Dynasty, the newest third-person action RPG coming from Team Ninja, a studio known for making no-nonsense skill-based action games as far back as 2003's Ninja Gaiden. Like previous works of Team Ninja, this one will also be difficult for newcomers or those uninitiated in the ways of Soulslikes. However, veteran players will probably find Wolong to be a breeze. After a short intro and a pretty decent character creator, players are dropped into a version of China that's in peril during the late Han Dynasty. Blood in the streets, villagers reduced to smoldering embers, and demonic creatures prowling the wreckage has become commonplace. Players take on the role of a soldier who falls in battle, only to be mysteriously revived by a powerful magical item in the typical Souls-like fashion. That item and its significance are explained through the story that is presented through the occasional cutscene. Unfortunately, the story is also pretty messy and not well written. It does serve just as a means of ushering players from one level into the next, though. From a glance, Wolong seems like it's taking after Team Ninja's Nioh series, utilizing similar gameplay mechanics and a fictionalized pseudo-historical setting that it's amplified with plenty of demonic and supernatural entities to spice things up. Others have also compared it to Sekiro from early gameplay demos. However, while Wolong does have some things in common with these games, with a little mastery of its core defensive function, it might feel closer to a standard action game for its targeted demographic. Combat in Wolong is fast-paced, and it'll definitely punish green players repeatedly for not taking stronger enemies seriously and paying attention to enemy patterns, which are all well animated and appropriately telegraphed. The enemies themselves are also inventive and cool, and might even give other Souls games a run for their money. There are 13 weapon types to use, which run the gamut from swords and spears to heavier weapons like hammers, and even ranged options like bows. These weapons scale based on the virtues you dedicate upgrade points to, which also determines what type of build your character has. Each weapon also has a unique moveset and special attack. All of these things are pretty common for Souls-likes, but Wolong lacks the mechanical depth in melee combat that other games have, namely Sekiro. There is a parry reversal system that looks awesome and feels great to use, but that's really it in terms of defensive maneuvers. There's no need to account for different types of unstoppable powerful attacks because you only need one button to deflect everything, even normal moves. There is a block that is tied to a posture system that gets depleted and can eventually break, but there's no real incentive to use it unless you build your character around blocking. However, there is a magic system that introduced a level of strategy for certain fights. Magic in Wolong is based on the 5 elements, or phases, and can be used to counter enemy attacks of the opposite phase. Mixing in magic with the flashy melee combat and deflection maneuvers was a little too much for me to keep track of, but it seems well designed enough that real Souls players could revel in it when it's a viable option. While you might go into Wolong being extra careful, the parry deflection focused melee combat that makes up a majority of the game quickly boils down to pressing the deflect button to gain the upper hand and putting enemies down. It's still fun, and it creates more than a few moments of extreme hype with slick animations, but there's no real depth to combat beyond that in most fights. Well, there is an AI companion system that allows you to bring up 2 warriors with you who get stronger the more you use them, but the friendly AI is not very useful outside of being a distraction for enemies in most cases. Instead of a large open world, Wolong features several linear levels with side paths and shortcuts that lead to a boss character at the end. There's enough visual variety in these locations to be moderately interesting, but the level design of each place is not up to par with similar games, mostly due to the linearity. There are diversions and distractions to mask it, but each stage is almost a straight line, and it doesn't take long to traverse if you can get around enemies. One of the interesting things that Wolong brings to the table is the morale system. Every enemy, as well as the player character, has a number set within a colored circle, which denotes their morale level. Enemies with a higher morale will be tougher to take down and could possibly one-shot you, but every kill you get upgrades your own morale and makes you effectively more powerful. This stat decreases upon death, but there are several marking flag locations that allow you to raise a flag to lock in a certain morale level, up to a maximum of 20 if you're able to find all of them. These marking flag spots look similar to battle flag posts, but the latter acts as your bonfire / respawn point. You could look at the morale system as a method of forcing a grind in order to be powerful enough to take on a boss, and it can become that if you miss a few marking flag posts, but it doesn't seem to be intended that way. The morale system instead feels more like a way of encouraging players to explore every nook and cranny of every level, which isn't hard given the aforementioned linearity, and take down every enemy you find, including powerful sub-bosses. Those with enough skill will probably be able to bypass this system entirely, so it also seems to be in place to help more casual players get through levels. In the midst of exploring locations and doing battle with human and monster foes, I noticed a particularly frustrating issue. Sometimes inputs just wouldn't register. The first few times my character ignored my play to use a healing item in the middle of combat, I thought it might have been my PS5 controller. I've tested it with other games, but it seems to only be Wo Long. Now, I don't know if this is a widespread issue or not, but it definitely added to my sacks of legitimate deaths with ones that felt unfair, especially when a deflect input didn't go through. There's also a massive focus on loot and gear, which creates a problem that was also present in Nioh: equipment management. Inventory screens are just a jumble of numbers and minor percentages that don't really affect gameplay that much from what I could tell, and only serves to confuse and overwhelm. If you like micromanaging stats down to the smallest percentage, you'll love it, but I opted to pick the largest numbers and dump everything else. Ultimately, Wo Long Fallen Dynasty is a fun Souls-like that, while still providing a challenge, will be a breeze for seasoned Souls players. If you're new to Souls-likes, Wo Long Fallen Dynasty might be the most fun and accessible one yet, thanks to a number of features it implements, but the handful of issues it has holds it back.
This foe may pose us a challenge. Be sure to keep your guard up!
Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Vault upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.